What's the difference between an average hypnotherapist and one who affects massive change in his or her subjects? While understanding, delivery, and personal charisma are important, it is the skill of your word craft that determines if you are average or brilliant. Whether your hypnosis script is written or done on the fly during a live session, the way you as a hypnotherapist integrate and deliver suggestions in imagery will determine the effectiveness of your session. Now, for the first time, experienced hypnotherapist Dr. Tim Brunson, the founder of the International Hypnosis Research Institute, reveals exactly what goes into first-class hypnotic scripts. He wants to radically change how hypnotherapists design, structure, and deliver scripts. So, he has designed an amazing training course called Advanced Script Writing Techniques. In this 6-lesson course, Dr. Tim retains the best features of both direct and indirect hypnosis methods and blends them with several Neurology of Suggestion-oriented concepts to include space-time perceptions and energy manipulation and lessons from the field of neuroscience. In the first lesson, you learn about current script writing styles, which he describes as regressive. You'll learn the pros and cons of these kinds of scripts and why they do and don't work. Listen to a short extract from Lesson 1.
While I seem to be critical of regressive scripts, I will be the first to admit that over the years, they have achieved wonderful results. In fact, for more than a decade I became successful solely by using them. Additionally, most of the research favorable to hypnosis has confirmed the efficacy of our field while using these rather outdated techniques. I have often been quoted that I believe that unlike other fields such as surgery, cooking, and auto repair, with hypnosis very often, a poorly done session can still get wonderful results. Nevertheless, it is my contention that our successes can be vastly increased with a more advanced approach to script writing and delivery.
In the second lesson, he delves into investigating the presenting issue, the typical applications for hypnotic scripts, and more. Here is a small extract from Lesson 2.
While many of the concepts just discussed, such as research and pre-planning your suggestions, are relevant for a live session, during the intake you will gain insight that will allow you to customize the script. This is for 2 reasons. First, the session will be more effective if you can use relevant suggestions that you elicit from your subject's comments. For instance, if you need to discover the subjective end state, which will be achieved once the presenting issue is resolved, it is best to attempt to use the exact words given to you during the interview. Second, occasionally the stated purpose of the session may be different than a more important presenting issue that may emanate during an active conversation. The appointment may have been made to help them stop smoking, but then you discover that their habit is a self-soothing coping mechanism, which helps them handle a very deep, unresolved trauma issue that absolutely must be addressed by a qualified clinician first. In that case, if you are capable of proceeding, you will need to focus the session on this more important issue first and schedule a later time to address their tobacco use. That is, unless you feel that both issues may be addressed within the same session.
In the third lesson, Dr. Tim explores the power of linguistics. He discusses and demonstrates the use of clarity and ambiguity, poetry and prose, and using space-time considerations. Here is an extract from Lesson 3.
I am extremely fascinated by the power of adverbs and adjectives because they are synonymous with the component encoding phenomena of pattern theory, which I briefly mentioned in the first lesson. Along the lines of that theory, I consider the sentence elements of subject, verbs, pronouns, prepositions, and objects of prepositions as components. In turn, they are encoded, which means given a qualitative attribute by the power of adverbs and adjectives. As the primary purpose of any intervention is to alter the encoding of patterns for the purpose of reharmonizing or other transformations, these two elements are critically important. Therefore, mentioning the smooth surface, the comfortable cushions, the swiftly moving balloons, or peaceful, restful morning give the script a qualitative aspect.
You'll find the fourth lesson in this course fascinating. Find out how specific imagery affects different parts of the mind and body. Learn how to use repetition, looping storylines, and ambiguity to create a highly effective script. And finally, you'll learn how to create extremely powerful post-hypnotic suggestions. Here's an extract from Lesson 4.
Now I want to cover how I use repetition. When I studied the courses taught by David Ellman back in the 1960s, he mentioned that when a stage hypnotist repeated a suggestion, they were almost always able to get resistant subjects to comply. He also mentioned that Dr. Bernheim had discovered that when a patient returns for subsequent hypnosis sessions, he found it was increasingly easy to induce trance. However, no explanation was given as to why repetition is important unless you consider the use it or lose it concept promoted by Donald Hebb. Hebb noticed that when rats repeated a process, the corresponding neural networks vastly increased in thickness. Of course, he also mentioned the converse, which is why many of the things that we learned in school tend to fade away in our memory banks. So the bottom line here is that repeating a suggestion multiple times makes it more efficient and lasting. That is especially true when the subject listens to a recording multiple times over a prolonged period.
Lesson 5 deals with negative and positive speech elements, imagery, and closure, as well as delving a little more into post-hypnotic suggestions and closure.
If you still hold onto the belief that the ritual of trance induction is required, you probably also know that there are virtually an unlimited number of ways that this can be done. In fact, Ellman once said that anything that presupposes trance will create trance. Indeed, his tunneling method and Erickson's utilization techniques are different names for the same concept. Likewise, Erickson's rather elegant and numerous conversational ambiguity techniques also provide a plethora of trance-inducing methods. Also, even though I obviously don't feel that adhering to a formal induction ritual is always required, as people normally expect it, I do include some form of induction at the beginning of my commercial products and in most of my individual and group sessions.
In Lesson 6, Dr. Tim addresses the how of script delivery, from the hypnotist's mental state to timing, pauses, voice modulation, and more. Listen to a short extract from Lesson 6.
The scripts produced by students who have completed this course should be delivered somewhat differently than other scripts. I know that I harp on this, but several years ago, when I read the introduction of a self-help hypnosis book, in which the author, who by the way was a very well-respected licensed psychologist, stated that the scripts contained therein should be slowly read into a cassette recorder using a monotone voice. Needless to say, I did not buy that book. On the other hand, I know many very effective hypnotherapists who sell recordings in which they deliver their scripts in a very soothing, sweet voice. I have spent many an hour at my office drifting off into a trance while listening to them. Regardless, the scripts that you are now writing should be consciously, at first, delivered in a specific way.
I hope you enjoyed this short tour of advanced script writing techniques. You can take this course free with membership to the International Hypnosis Research Institute. For more information, check out www.hypnosisresearchinstitute.org. The link can also be found on this YouTube page.